All right, cool. So joined with us today is Thomas Kenny. He's running for the District 4 seat on the Indian River County School Board. Thomas, maybe just give us a quick little 30-second about yourself and, who you are.
Hi, y'all. I'm Thomas Kenny, running for School Board District 4, like he said, and I'm a small business owner in the financial services. I do life insurance in 4 states. Basically, I've been following school board issues really closely, and what concerned me the most was how citizens were being treated and what was happening in our school system. So, as a result, there were obviously the mass mandates that were happening. That was a big thing. But also what's happening with school systems nationwide has also been happening here locally. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of what we call non-governmental organizations. The common term is NGO. And they're nonprofits for the most part, and they create problems. A lot of woke ideology is founded in the, quote, systemic racism. And so what they do is they say, you have this problem with the systemic bias or whatever, or racial bias or whatever the case may be. And then the nonprofit comes in and decides that they have the solution for you, and they charge your school system.
Right.
For all the, quote, professional development, which never really gets solved.
Right.
It's really weird. If you go back and look at some of my statements I've made during public comment, one in particular is a group called Project Implicit that was actually releasing studies into the math curriculum, talking about how conservatives are more implicitly biased than any other group in the United States. Project Implicit was a PhD project at Harvard, and they later became a nonprofit. And they have a bunch of PhDs sitting there waiting to come to your school system, private organization, or other government entity and teach you how to be not implicitly biased. It's a really weird business model in my view.
I was going to
say
So
that's the big thing with me personally, is protecting the school system. So a lot of what that does is it creates environments where people are sort of activists more than they're educators. And we've seen that in the school system.
Yeah, we've noticed a lot of that.
And so, that's one of the big things I was seeing. What got me into this, though, is people started inviting me to come. And they're like, you need to run. You have a great perspective on things. It's different than your others who speak. Not that theirs were bad or anything. Mine was just different. And I thought about it, and I've been doing local politics here for a little while. I worked on the Trump campaign, all sorts of things like that. And I said to myself personally, I'll never run for an office unless I'm invited. And what I mean by that is, unless someone says to me, hey, you need to do this. We're citizens here. We want you to represent us.
Right.
And that's how I came to this position. It's something I learned through history. When you start reading Jefferson and a lot of these guys, you realize that they would, a lot of times they'd rather not be in government. They wanted to just do their lives, but they always came back to serve because people asked.
Right.
And so that's the way I sort of approach it.
Well, very good. You answered our first question already. Naturally, that was well spoken.
What was your first question?
It was just going to be what motivated you to get involved with the school board, which I think you hammered that home.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. And with that comes, a firm belief in parental rights. I think the Moms for Liberty movement, and they've endorsed me, Moms for Liberty has, is something that is very significant because it's a demonstration of years of frustration.
Right.
And, quote, the pandemic brought it all on. Parents started to see, because the kids were at home doing online modules and things like that, what kids were really learning. They're like, this is nothing like the way it was taught to me. And what is all this, stuff in here, this activism stuff? And so, that's been an eye-opener, and it's amazing to me that Moms for Liberty was started out of this county. And then I think of Laura Zork working for Freedom Works. And Freedom Works started their whole Department of Education reform and put her in charge of it after she had lost her reelection bid. So, to me, Indian River is at the forefront of educational rights for families. And we're a very family-oriented community, if anything.
Yeah, I would agree
with that. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with your comment about being the forefront of it. We've seen a lot of that with DeSantis kind of, sticking it to the establishment in a way. So, yeah, perfect. So as we've established, you're very pro-parental rights, which I think is something all of us here on the show can appreciate. Do you think that extends to school choice? And if so, how do you see that properly being implemented? Do you think that's like some sort of voucher system, or do you have other ideas in regards to that?
Money ultimately following the student. Arizona, I don't know if you've looked into it. I've looked into it a little bit.
Yeah,
they're getting
talked about
vouchers back to them with a check amount essentially for their taxes, and then they're like going, "Here, take it wherever you want to go." I think that's a great idea. But parental rights to me is such an opportunity for schools. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are like, "Whoa, you guys are being too conservative. You're stopping the schools from making progress, blah, blah, blah." No, it's an opportunity. Look, we've lost. Brian Barefoot says it all the time from the board. We're not talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic. Well, yeah, because you're violating parental rights. You're violating the rights of kids. And so that's why you're not. You're breaking the law. And the reality of it is like, here are your rights for the parents. They're inalienable, unless, of course, a parent's abusing a child and all that, and purposely neglecting and all that. And, there's always been rules about that if a teacher or an administrator sees something like that, they report it.
Right.
But it's an inalienable right. Mm-hmm. It's like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I often say to parents, your pursuit of happiness is the joy of raising your children. Yeah, as you see fit.
We've seen a lot of some of the school administrators. They seem to think that they kind of have precedent over the rearing of the kid, and the parent just doesn't know better or something to that regard.
Right.
It's nice to see people kind of waking up to
the one thing a parent does know is their kid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they know their child. They know their children. And so this is it. Parental rights really allows a school to refocus its mission on education.
Right.
And, because one of the things that's happened in all of this is the student-parent-teacher relationship has been eroded. Mm-hmm. And the parent is the hardest part to keep in that triangled relationship because they work, they do whatever, they have other kids. And so, that's the hard part about it. And a lot of times we have just, as parents, with every right there's responsibility. So there's that side of the equation as well. But it allows the community, parental rights allows the community to, let's bring the mission of the school back to education. Hey, we're not going to violate parental rights and worry about mass. We're going to trust our parents. We're not going to violate the law about curriculum and leave pornography in the libraries.
Yeah.
We're just not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
that was the silliest ruling ever.
Yeah.
My opponent right now is saying, well, it's not a library book's not a really curriculum until a teacher assigns it and then the kid goes and checks it out and brings it for the assignment. I'm like, are you going to be a technocrat when we're spending 50% of our curriculum budget? We can spend up to 50% of our curriculum budget on library books. Mm-hmm. Wait a minute. We buy them under the curriculum budget. Why are they not curriculum until they're? And then the second thing is well, why you guys complain about books nobody reads? I'm like, well, why are you filling a library with books nobody reads?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a really good point.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's a waste of my money regardless, whether
Yeah,
they're reading them or not. It's,
Not very
either
good
way, it's a waste of my money.
coming from over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bad argument.
Really poor arguments. I like that you brought up.
I was reading that today and I was like, huh?
Yeah, we just read that before
Yeah.
we started.
Yeah, I like
actually.
that you brought up Mr. Barefoot, because right before we hopped on here, we all read the article together, and
In the
we got
Vero
a good
News.
chuckle out of his stance on where the school board stands.
Did you read my editorial with that?
I don't think so.
We only just found this article maybe 2 days ago. Me and Cameron. So I'm Cameron's cousin. We were talking to his dad about having you and Jackie on, and he threw us the article, and he's like you guys should read that ahead of time. And we we're not the biggest fan of Mr. Barefoot. I think it's safe to say.
Well, IndianRiverNews.us.
Yeah.
Ryan Blade is the owner, and Jackie and I both have published responses there, and you'll talk to Jackie, obviously, to her about it. But my biggest thing is he threw a discordant accusation into this race, and that totally undermines serving the board faithfully.
Mm-hmm.
You know, board protocol requires you to work collaboratively with board members. And that article is really targeting Jackie Rosario, but it's targeting anybody with Moms for Liberty. And we're both endorsed by them.
Mm-hmm.
She's also endorsed by the governor, and I think they knew it was coming.
Right.
And so, you know, the guy over there at 32963, I call it 5-digit fake news. He's just his scribe. He really is. He's nothing more than a scribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But this is really irritating because you are undermining working faithfully with people.
Right.
You know, send someone else out there to say something stupid like that. But for you to say it, it just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, I like how
And
he
I
tried to.
felt it was really unfortunate.
Yeah, I like how he kind of accused Rosario of turning the school board into a hyper politicized kind of agency when as you outlined earlier that it was because of them trampling on parents' rights that it kind of entered that political arena.
Well, it is. It's look, a school board is this way. You are an elected representative at the core of everything you do. And this, my opponent has been in education for 38 years, I believe, or something like that. She's a really good teacher. She was a good administrator, where you have autonomy to make decisions. But that doesn't make you a good school board member, because now we're talking about governing.
Right.
We're not talking about just taking all this school experience. Yeah, you can talk the talk and all the acronyms and all that stuff. Great, but you're saying I know so much that you parents need to step aside and let us do our job?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense to me. At the core of it is you are an elected representative. And so the boss of a school board member is the people who voted, are the voter, are the taxpayers. And then it's the school board member. And then the school board is the boss of the superintendent. And the superintendent, we set policy on school board. We do all those things and set the direction. And we say, superintendent, now make it happen. And he's like the CEO. And Dr. Moore is not a bad guy, but it's like, as Jackie will tell you, if the school board's left, he's rolling left. If the school board's right, he's rolling right.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
So
nobody's more
what kind of
against
school
the
board
mask
do you
mandate.
want? Public.
Nobody's more against the mask than Dr. Moore. Is that right?
Yeah, as he said in the school board meeting.
What's that?
We watched one of the televised school board meetings a couple, probably about a year ago at this point, for one of the episodes, and he made a comment. He's like, yeah, well, no one's more against the mask mandates than I am. And, you could hear the audience kind of grovel. And it was like, yeah, I'm sure that's what it is.
Well, then he went on to implement mask mandates.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah, it just doesn't make, and they implemented those mask mandates after parental rights.
Right.
And the story goes, as August, it was implemented. But my opponent voted against mandates the first time, but it passed 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the mandate. FLDOE, Department of Education, writes a letter to him, says, you're violating parental rights. So he comes back and he runs this compromise called tiered mitigation.
Yeah, remember that.
And this is, and then on the 14th of September, with that compromising thing, my opponent switched her vote. And if you watch that meeting on the 14th, it is the most confused meeting in the world. That Peggy Jones inadvertently votes against herself.
Oh, gosh.
God. I remember.
So the vote was 3-2
it.
again for masks, with Terry voting for them. And then on the 23rd, the DOE sends yet another letter and says, we want an answer by the 24th at 5 p.m. You're coming to court for a hearing, because masks are the sole discretion of parents.
Right.
They highlighted it and put it in bold letters in the letter. And within like 4 or 5 hours, he took the mandate out of the tiered mitigation.
Nice. All right, so we'll jump on to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. We're running short on time, so we'll jump to these next two questions. So as school shootings have become more prevalent as of recently, what ideas or strategies do you have to become more prepared in respects to, just schools being prepared?
Well, I think with Florida, it's interesting because the Parkland schools have really begun to lock down, and we have a one entrance.
Right.
We have the main entrance, and and in some schools it's two. So you come through a door, you're in a secure area, and there's another door while they verify ID, and then there's all the fencing and everything.
Right.
There has been some concern because sometimes doors here and there inside the school grounds have been unlocked, and so working with that, I think for us, it's safety within the schools, because look what happened at the Freshman Learning Center.
Right.
And it was a little bit disturbing to me to see the police body cam video. Eric Flowers did a press release statement, and he showed some of the body cam video, and kids were running by police officers into the melee and getting involved because they want to shoot all this stuff for TikTok and tell all their friends.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we've got a phone issue in that regard. And so I've talked to some of the SROs about that and looking for ways we can do that. The other thing is I think we need to do disciplinary deans, old school. Let's go back to old school.
Okay.
Disciplinary deans, where they're in the halls and they're with the students daily.
Right.
Not right now, a student, they get in trouble, they go to the principal's office, the AP works with them, and they send them back.
Yeah.
And it's a really passive way to do things. But if you have disciplinary deans out there patrolling, checking bathrooms, things like that,
right,
they get to know the student body, and they're on a more personal level with them. And so they could probably mitigate a lot of this stuff or get wind of it. Their eyes and ears are out in the student body daily. So I think that's where we have to go, is how do we make our internal safe? Because it's a hard environment for teachers who love to teach. They're called vocationally to do it. And they don't have an environment that's,
it's kind of supporting them.
Disciplined enough for them. Yeah, disciplined enough for them to be effective.
Right.
Yeah, something you just said totally rang a bell with me, because in our when I went to charter high school, and we had like a security guard type guy, kind of drove around on a golf cart, and I was like his biggest nemesis. Like, I did all the things wrong. I parked in all the wrong parking spots, and that was one of the biggest. I don't, hindsight, I'm looking at it, I have no idea why I objectively always wanted to park in the wrong spots, but And he eventually, he would constantly tell me, "Look, man, you got to like follow these set of rules." And eventually, one day, he booted my car, and I couldn't leave the school, and so he made me go get him, and he unlocked it or whatever. Long story short, we became like friends.
Yeah.
And the other day, I was at a pizza place, and he was in the pizza place, and he came up and hugged me, gave me a kiss on the cheek. He's like, he's like an old Italian guy.
Yeah.
But we became friends, and I think that's kind of like what you're saying. We kind of became to know each other personally, even though in some way I was being disciplined.
Right.
And I think that's really the way things should be. You should come to know people, even if you're implementing.
Right. That is, mentoring is not just teaching kids how to, this is your career path for college, so take this course. Mentoring is that disciplinary, that relational connection that a student comes to trust from an adult. And see, if you just go to some official guy, AP, who's working with the principal to oversee everything in student services, school lunches, budgets, safety, all curriculum, all these things that come through the school. I've talked to Jackie about this in New York. She said there was an assistant principal for every area of the school. You had one for student services and so on and so forth. Here we have one, and then that person is now also doing all the discipline, and they could spend all day doing it. And so, and with like kids who do athletics, well, their coaches and their assistant coaches could be those disciplinary, I would say disciplinary and mentorship deans. It's because it's twofold,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's important.
Yeah. And with that, we'll move on to our last one here. Given the last 2 years with people recognizing the importance of local government, especially with respect to the impact it has on their day-to-day life, do you think maybe more of a decentralized kind of planning of education system would result in a net positive outcome, or do you think that we should kind of keep the current education system we have where the school kind of has a monopoly on education? Or the state has a monopoly, rather.
Well, how would you approach decentralization? I mean, it runs through the state. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, curriculums are approved by the state. Think about this. We had the Savas math curriculum, and during that debate, I mentioned about the CRT in it from Project Implicit. I spoke on that. That was in Savas. It was given to me by Chris Allen from We the People at Indian River. And, I remember at the time going, the board chair, Terry, who's my opponent, said, well, that's just two of their books. Because they would only point out two books. And you're thinking, like, hold on, there's like 7 books in here. If 2 of them got it on the first 3 chapters, chances are all of them have it. And Chris Allen was the one that caused the Florida Department of Education to remove 40% of the curriculum. It was her research. It was her pointing this out. They said they only had evidence from one person. She did like 27 interviews with newspapers around the state because everyone was mad that only one person changed the whole course of curriculum in the whole state. Mm-hmm. And so that's a beautiful thing, because I look at it as like it only takes one to change things for the better. Decentralized, the only way I see that happening is school choice.
Right.
And that's I think something I'm for, because I think a public school system should be competitive.
Right. I think that's
all
something
the money
that
should just go into one place.
We talk about
especially the amount that we deal with. It's 50% of our millage rates for taxes.
Okay. Something we talk about a lot is just the the potential. It's great. We in the federalist system we have where the state controls the education system. So we're not being told by Washington D.C. what our curriculum is, and that's great. But where we get a little bit worried is what if the guys that we don't like take control of the state? We saw how close Andrew Gillum came to becoming the governor of Florida. And what happens when that pendulum swings the other way, and now we're put at the mercy of what they want to, the changes they want to implement. So that's why and I think, like you say,
look where you are federally. It's exactly what happens.
Right, exactly.
Because I think right now the polarization's so great that they're not only going to let this pendulum swing, and when it gets all the way to where it's going to turn and go back, they're just going to tie it down.
Yeah, right.
And they're not going to let time run on.
Right.
They're going to hold it in place, and they're going to do whatever they want to do, and that's what they're doing right now at the federal level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Thomas. Well, we appreciate having you. Yeah, I mean,
thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for taking this time with us. Do you have anything that you want to promote at the end of this?
Yeah, I want you all to go to my website, votethomaskenny.com. That's votethomaskenny.com. And hit the big donate button and send $5.
There you go.
Or $10 or $20 or $1,000. No, this is about parental rights. This is about citizen representation, and I think that's what's going on here.
Right.
A lot of, we didn't even talk about how publishers are working over school systems, the millions of dollars they make off of our tax.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the big issues with the library books.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, hey, these are great books. We recommend them. And so they just did. They came in unvetted, and then we had all this stuff here.
Right. Yep.
And they may, you think about it. If you sell 4 books in Little Indian River, think about how many you're selling in Miami-Dade School District. Think about how many you're selling in Jacksonville. And then multiply that by about 2,300 counties where the Follett system that moves these books through is.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, a publisher sold 250,000. They've got a 250,000 book budget for every one they do.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's all on tax dollars.
Yep.
Not good.
Well,
not good.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And so this is what this election's about. It's putting a stop to this.
Yeah.
No, I think we agree. And then, again, like we said, we definitely appreciate you being on, Thomas. And if anytime you want to come back on, talk a little bit longer, you have one topic you want to just dig into deeply, just let us know. I think we all would be open to that and be a very fun time.
Oh, yeah, let's do it. And hopefully it'll be the victory topic.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll have that victory drink with you.
Guys, thank you so much, and y'all have a great